The lecture hall. The lecture hall of the Galactic University of Zenthra 9 was an amphitheater of light, sound, and biology. Holograms shimmered along the curved ceiling, shifting to match the presence of each new species. The seating automorphed into plasma pools, crystalline perches, or mist clouds as students filed in. Dozens of sentients from across the known galaxy, carapaced, feathered, tentacled, gaseous, settled in for the day's lesson. Vor, a young Threxian from the ice moons of Drezhel, tapped his notes into his neural slate. Efficient. Cold. Focused. Just like his people. He had come early to secure a spot near the center, where his 3 eyes could capture optimal angles of the holodisplays. He didn't usually care for Professor Zilx's theatrics, but the ancient scholar had a reputation for turning even mundane topics into dangerous revelations. A deep chime echoed as Zilx Varrowan slithered onto the central podium. A being of undulating limbs and translucent skin, the professor projected a calm that masked an intelligence Vor grudgingly respected. Silence fell across the room. Predatory behavior across species, Zilx began, voice resonating in every auditory register required by his audience. We have studied the CHYRK wolfbats of Gliese 442c, the psionic swarm flares of the Tari Nebula, and even the infamous Gorgory blood orchids. Murmurs rippled among the students. Everyone remembered the hollow footage of those flowers digesting a sentient ape alive. But today, Zilx continued, shifting his tone, we turn our attention to a species lesser known, but infinitely more complex. Class 3 bipedal omnivores. Limited exoskeletal defense. No natural weaponry beyond dentition. Fragile organics. Vor smirked. Weak. Zilx raised a tendril. The lights dimmed. They are called humans. A silence heavier than vacuum fell. Then came the expected reactions, clicks of disbelief, amused chirps, even a few ultrasonic laughs. A floating sack of hydrogen known as Silfax bubbled. Surely you jest, Professor. Earthlings. The storytelling primates. They barely qualify as apex predators, added Vor aloud, receiving nods from neighboring students. Zilx's eyes, 7 of them, blinked slowly. Let us examine the evidence. The first hologram flickered to life, a gaunt, half-naked human jogging across a dry savanna. Vor leaned forward, puzzled. This is a behavior known as persistence hunting, Zilx explained. They use no weapons. They do not ambush. They simply run their prey to death. Gasps scattered the room. That creature runs without stopping, Vor muttered. For hours. Days, in some cases, Zilx corrected gently. They sweat to cool themselves, a rare thermoregulatory trait. Their upright gait, lungs, and energy reserves allow for feats of endurance few species can comprehend. The next sequence played, humans crafting tools, spears, traps, building shelters in snow, diving under icy waters, forming tribes and hierarchies. They are not the fastest, Zilx said. Not the strongest. But they adapt. And they cooperate. They pass knowledge across generations. They use language. They form culture. A scene displayed humans scaling cliffs without safety gear. Another showed a mother lifting a vehicle to save her trapped child. These are not flukes, Zilx intoned. This is their baseline. But Professor, Vor challenged, narrowing his eyes, adaptation and empathy do not make a predator. These traits are for survival, not dominance. Zilx's gaze fixed on him. Is it survival, the professor asked, to invent war before agriculture? To build weapons that defy planetary defense grids before achieving planetary peace? To turn gods into tools, and tools into gods? The room had gone still again. They do not hunt for food anymore, Zilx said, voice now softer. But they still hunt. Ideas. Frontiers. Each other. The universe. Another hologram emerged, a primitive human launching a stone-tipped spear. Then a modern soldier guiding a drone. Then a spacefaring vessel leaving Earth's orbit. In 10 millennia, they evolved from prey to galactic force. Not through strength, but through refusal. Refusal to submit. To stay still. To stop. Vor no longer smirked. He looked at the human eyes in the projections, fierce, focused, unyielding. So, Zilx concluded, When we ask what defines an apex predator, we must ask, is it the power to kill, or the will never to be killed again? The lights slowly returned. Vor sat motionless. The Threxian logic in him demanded a rebuttal. The Threxian instinct in him wanted to run. The professor smiled. Next session, he said, we explore how they took their world and left it behind. Evolution engineered for predation. The lecture hall's atmosphere lingered in a state of hushed discomfort. Vor tapped his neural slate absently. Despite himself, he had reviewed the human endurance footage 3 times since the lecture ended. He couldn't reconcile it. A soft-bodied, unarmored mammal, capable of outrunning prey to collapse? Of weaponizing willpower? It gnawed at him. The next day, the hall was full 10 minutes early. Even the gaseous lifeforms clustered more tightly than usual. Professor Zilk's Varroan entered without flourish. The lights dimmed. We continue, Zilk said simply, with the anatomy of an apex predator. A new hologram spun into view, an anatomically detailed, skinned human male, rotating in the center of the room. Labels blinked into existence: tendons, bones, sweat glands, brain regions, vocal cords, eyes. Your average predator, Zilks began, relies on superior physical traits: claws, venom, speed. Humanity did not. He motioned to the figure's limbs. No claws. No armor. No venom sacs. And yet, resilience. He highlighted the legs and feet. A human can walk upright for 30 kilometers a day. Run for 5. In combat, they shift from bipedal balance to a primal fury few species can mimic. The skeleton shifted, showing healed fractures and reinforced muscle fiber. They break easily, but they heal. They build back stronger. And unlike most apex predators, they plan. A new display emerged, showing primitive cave paintings beside tactical battle schematics from Earth's 20th century. Every species hunts. Only humans write instructions on how to hunt better. Zilks's eyes scanned the room. Let us examine psychology. The central hologram dissolved into a split-screen display. One side showed a human caring for a wounded animal, the other, the same species deploying precision-guided missiles. Humans are biologically engineered contradictions. Compassionate to strangers. Merciless to threats. Their cognitive flexibility is astonishing and terrifying. A Thrillian student, whose species communicated via bioluminescence, pulsed a nervous question: how can they be both social and violent? Zilks replied, because both serve the same purpose: survival at all costs. Another hollow panel unfolded, displaying footage of humans lifting others in disaster zones, forming fire brigades, building evacuation routes, interlaced with riot footage, hostage rescues, combat patrols. They cooperate, Zilk said. Not out of love. Out of calculated necessity. It makes them more efficient. They weaponized empathy. Laughter erupted from a reptilian noble in the upper tiers. Zilks raised a tendril, and the hall fell silent again. Do not mistake this for weakness, he said. Humans do not kill for food alone. They kill for ideas. For symbols. For futures they have not yet seen, but believe in. He turned to a projection of Earth's major historical conflicts: 2 world wars, regional proxy conflicts, digital revolutions. No species has fought more among its own, and survived. In doing so, they learned tactics, psychology, logistics, and restraint. Vor blinked. You're saying they grew stronger through their own chaos? Exactly, Zilk said. From self-made fire came steel. From steel, rockets. From rockets, stars. A final image snapped into view: Earth, blue and green, slowly rotating. A cradle and a crucible. They mastered violence, then chose to walk away from it. That, Zilk said, voice deepening, is the apex moment. Not the power to kill, but the discipline not to. Silence. Even Vor felt the weight of that distinction. Evolution crafted them for endurance, Zilk said. But their minds turned endurance into obsession. They outlasted everything, even themselves. He paused. The galaxy has faster species, smarter species, stronger species, but none are more relentless. The room dimmed further as the last hologram showed a human child learning to walk, falling, rising, falling again. Every predator strikes when the moment is right. But humans, they strike when there is nothing left, and still find a way to win. A silence thicker than before followed. The professor deactivated the display. "Now," he said gently, "do you still believe they are not Apex?" Vor didn't answer. He couldn't. The images still looped in his mind: sweat, blood, fire, triumph. The human creature was not terrifying because of what it had done, but because of what it still could do. Zilks gathered his things. "Next time," he said, pausing at the archway, "we'll see where they came from, and why they left it behind." He looked directly at Vor. "You will want to pay attention." They called it Earth. The students of the Galactic University of Zenthra 9 were restless. The word human now carried a different weight, no longer a footnote species, but a looming shadow in the minds of the curious and the cautious. Vor arrived early again, though this time not out of discipline. He needed answers. Professor Zilks Varrowen floated onto the dais, unusually silent. Without preamble, the lights dimmed and the holos began. A globe spun slowly at the center of the room. Blue oceans, white clouds, green-brown continents. A soft hum filled the air as the word appeared above it, in every known script. "Earth." Zilk spoke, his voice low and reverent. "This is where it began." Images burst to life, flashing, layered, accelerating. Primitive humans napped stones, painted walls, lit fires in caves. The next slide jumped millennia. Pyramids, temples, cities, armies in formation. This was not evolution in slow motion, Zilks explained. This was fire racing along dry brush. They didn't change because nature demanded it. They changed because they refused to stay the same. He gestured, and the timeline accelerated again. 10,000 rotations of their planet. That's all it took. From stone tools to nuclear fusion. The room was dead quiet. The holos now showed factories belching smoke, space shuttles launching, satellites blanketing the planet. They called it progress, Zilks continued. But Earth was a crucible. Hostile climates. Scarce resources. Constant internal conflict. Every human was forged in hardship. Every generation was told, "You must be better." And somehow, they listened. A montage of Earth's chaos unfolded. Floods, plagues, wars, revolutions. Dictators fell. Borders changed. Species vanished. And humans endured. Empires rose and crumbled under their own ambition. Yet the idea of humanity, collective, defiant, reaching, survived every collapse. Vor leaned forward. He felt it now, not just fear or awe. Something deeper. Something close to envy. "Why?" Vor asked aloud. "Didn't they destroy themselves?" Zilks turned to him slowly. "They tried." A series of images flashed. Mushroom clouds. Barren test zones. Human leaders, faces drawn and aged, signing treaties with trembling hands. They stared into extinction, and chose not to step forward. It was not mercy. It was strategy. They realized survival meant restraint. Another image formed, the Earth from orbit, small, vulnerable, beautiful. "They called it home," Zilk said. "But they also called it dangerous. Because they were there." The narrative shifted. Human colonies bloomed across moons, asteroids, orbital habitats. Terraforming machines stirred the dust of Mars. A new frontier was rising. They left not for conquest, Zilks explained, but because they had to grow. Earth had become too small for their ambition, and too sacred for their fury. Footage displayed the great exodus. Massive colony ships lifting off, carrying generations into deep space. No weapons, no conquests. Just quiet departures. Vor's voice was quieter now. "But if they left, where are they now?" Zilk stared into the center of the rotating Earth. "They are everywhere and nowhere." They scattered, built, and then vanished. The image of Earth began to change. Forests reclaimed ruins. Oceans swelled over coastlines. No more smoke. No more lights. They didn't abandon Earth. They gave it back to itself. Vor stood. Why would predators walk away from power? Zilks turned to him. Because predators take. Humans learned to choose. They became something else. Another student, a nervous aquatic being, asked, "Do they still exist?" Zilks smiled faintly. "Yes. Watching. Listening. Quiet. They keep to the edges now. Unseen, but not inactive." A final hologram flickered to life, a single stone on a grassy hill. No inscriptions. Just a message, broadcast from deep space, translated into every galactic tongue. "We left our cradle, not because we outgrew it, but because we loved it too much to break it further. We are not gone. We are not gods. We are human." The lights returned slowly. The students sat frozen, each lost in thought. Vor's heart beat heavily. For the first time in his life, he questioned whether his species truly understood greatness, or just survival. Zilks gathered his materials. "Tomorrow, we go to the Terran archive. You will see what remains. If they permit us." He paused at the door. "And then, you will understand what it means to be feared not for your strength, but for your choice not to use it." The archive and the warning. The class arrived at the Terran archive under heavy escort. Orbiting a long dead star in neutral space, it was neither defended nor hidden, but it radiated a presence that made even battle-hardened species uneasy. The archive was a silent monolith, blacker than void, absorbing every light cast upon it. It did not open. It simply allowed them in. Inside, gravity adjusted to each being's preference. The air changed scent depending on which corridor one entered. Vor was unnerved before he'd even seen a single display. Zilks Varrowan led them into the central atrium, where 1,000 holograms hovered, still, quiet, waiting. At the center stood a figure, human-shaped, faceless, ageless. A statue not of flesh, but of meaning. "The archive is not a museum," Zilks said. "It is a message. One final lesson." A hologram flickered to life. A battlefield. Ancient. Then another. Children learning in floating classrooms. Then more, human explorers drifting past the galactic rim, their ships long lost. "These are not records of victory," Zilks explained. "They are memories. Mistakes. Moments. They chose to leave behind not monuments, but context." Vor watched as a human diplomat embraced a Threxian rebel centuries ago, brokering peace that lasted to this day. "How did they know our species?" Vor asked. "They studied you," Zilks said. "Before you studied yourselves." A chill rippled through the class. The holograms changed again. Newer. Stranger. A solar system terraformed but left empty. A machine that could revive extinct species, deactivated mid-operation. A massive shipyard around a neutron star, abandoned before completion. "They could have ruled," Zilks said quietly. "But they didn't." One of the insectoids clicked in frustration. "Why not conquer? Why not lead?" Zilks walked toward the faceless human statue. "Because they remembered what it cost them to climb that high. The wars. The genocides. The burning of their own sky. They knew if they stood at the top, they'd be alone." The lights dimmed. One last file opened. A voice, soft, unaccented, unmistakably human. "To those who find this, we are not your saviors, nor your tyrants. We are your mirror. We were you, and one day you may become us. If you seek power, take it. If you seek peace, protect it. But if you seek to understand why we left, ask yourself what you would do if you could no longer trust your own strength. We hunted not to feed. We fought not to win. We endured because we could not bear to stop reaching. We were human. We still are. Somewhere." The voice faded. The statue's eyes glowed briefly, two soft lights in the dark. Then silence. Vor could feel something twisting inside him. The archive wasn't just showing what humans had been, it was asking what they had chosen. To be capable of ultimate destruction, and to walk away. It was unthinkable. Zilks turned to face his students. "Do you understand now why I call them apex predators?" One by one, heads nodded, tentacles, crests, shells all lowering in shared revelation. They were not predators because they killed, Zilk said. They were predators because nothing, not pain, not fear, not death, could stop them from becoming more. Vor stepped closer to the statue. For the first time in his life, he felt not superiority, but smallness. And in that smallness, potential. They could return, Vor said. It wasn't a question. Zilk's gaze lingered on the dark beyond the archive walls. They will. But not as conquerors. If they return, it will be because they must. And if that day comes, pray it is to teach us again, not to remind us why they left. As the class exited the archive, no one spoke. They no longer saw Earth's children as primitives. Not as curiosities. But as the one thing every apex species feared. Something stronger, not because it could destroy, but because it chose not to. The end.